Welcome to Great Talking Entertainment. I'm your host, KJ, and this is the YouTube channel where I review movies and TV shows from all your favorite superheroes, including Marvel Comics, DC Comics, and much more. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Great Talking Entertainment official channel. Now let's go, baby. Welcome back to the YouTube channel, everyone. My name is KJ. And today is my spoiler review for the season finale of Hulu's / Disney Plus, Murdaugh's Death in the Family, episode 1 / season finale, spoiler review. So if you have not seen this amazing series, please pause this. And before you go, could you hit the thumbs up button, the like button? That would help my YouTube channel out. I appreciate that. Come back and check out this spoiler review of Episode 8 of Murdaugh Death in the Family. So again, this is a spoiler review. Y'all been warned. Now, let's get into it. This episode starts off from the year 2019. Buster and his dad are putting in the range, just shooting, hanging out. And then it goes back to the next thing when the news broke out about the scheme that he tried to pull off so his son Buster can use the money. As Alex Murdaugh is in recovery, and released from, as you say, rehab, basically. He looked better. I mean, he was getting through it, but it still doesn't change the fact of what he's done. And, from here now, like, throughout this whole episode, we just seen everything exposed. We're seeing, like, members of the family, whether they're blood related or just related by marriage, they're realizing the truth. And especially for Buster, he doesn't want to believe any of this stuff. He believes what he knows and he grew up with. But again, when he gets arrested for fraud for the maid Gloria, as we see through this scene where Buster and his wife can't go to public places because, again, the news broke out and people are just talking smack and being negative about it, which there's some truth to what they're saying and stuff. But we see Buster, the show is really trying to show Buster is probably more innocent, but not as innocent as he is according to these episodes. But at least they're trying to show there's some type of innocence, that he's innocent in certain parts of this show. He's innocent in certain situations of what his father is being arrested for and charged for, basically. And, throughout this episode, we're seeing the struggles through this whole family and stuff because of that. And again, just being in a public place, people talking about you, it gets nuts. And then in July of 2020, we step ahead of the headquarters of the police, and they're showing the Murdaugh family the Snapchat video. And this is where we really hear Alex Murdaugh's voice. Buster is defending his dad. He doesn't want to believe it, but Alex Murdaugh is denying it as well. And obviously he's watching his words and saying things that he needs to say on the trial, but it's nuts. And it's crazy because we see Buster in disbelief. He really doesn't want to believe that his father did this. But unfortunately, with the Snapchat video, you can hear Alex Murdaugh's voice loud and clear with the thing. And as of now, until later, they won't show how they perceive how this might have went down. But it's not looking good. And then there's a scene where Randy, the brother of Alex Murdaugh, he's the uncle for Buster and Paul and the others. And they're just beating around the bush, but I think Randy understands what's going to happen. And again, Buster is in denial. And then there's a scene where Maggie's sister tells Buster, like, hey, listen, I'm going to testify against your father. And she goes on the court, and we hear what she says on the trial. And I think now from then we see Buster is more sad about he lost his mom and he lost his brother Paul. So now we're starting to see it, but you still see a little bit of hope that maybe his dad didn't do it. Maybe this is all just not true, and that's what Buster wants to really believe. But this is the day one trial in Brough, South Carolina, and again the evidence started to connect, and it also makes a lot of sense in some of the scenarios. And the Murdaugh's family's goal now is to make Alex look innocent, but it's not really working out in these scenes, and it seems that the people have turned on him, and Buster is going to obviously speak for his father on trial in his own testimony for him and stuff. But unfortunately now I think the jury, if you notice the jury, they literally don't want to hear or care what any of those family members have to say. Again, they're more already in belief for the other situations, the money fraud, the maid Gloria. We're talking about a daughter who didn't get a chance to live her adult life and start a family, the Beach family. We're talking about an innocent person who was life taken away because of their preference of who they like to be with or have a relationship. And the jury, the people of the jury, just show this facial expression of like their minds have already made up, and they're only listening because, one, it's the law. You don't want to break rules in court, and two, it's like because they're on jury duty, so you got to honor it, and it goes as long as it needs to go, right? And that's the whole point. But when we get to the scene of day 18 of the trial, we see the son who doesn't think, or doesn't understand how everything got to this situation. But Buster, talked, and he brought up happy moments in front of the jury. And Buster actually feels how Buster actually feels about his dad. And Buster kept his cool, and he sounded really professional. And he said the right words, and the statements sound really good and polished, but it's still looking bad. Alex Murdaugh wanted to take the stand, and, he was cussing everybody out of his lawyers. And Alex Murdaugh is really good at showing how good he is, but I don't think now he can talk his way out of it from what it looks like. Because when we get to the trial day 21, Alex Murdaugh admitted that he lied, but he was trying to change it up where, it's like, yeah, I lied because I just witnessed this and that, or I just saw my wife dead and my son dead. And he's saying, like, yeah, I can't remember everything I said, but he was trying to cover up a lie with a lie. And, it's a strategy that's been used before, but I don't think the jury is buying it, because as they made the decision, they have found him guilty on murder, and he will spend the rest of his life in prison. Throughout this episode, we see Buster start seeing his dad's true color, or now Buster's heart's broken because the way he asked his father, like, hey, Dad, how come you didn't call me? And he's like, oh, well, I didn't want you to make the trip. He's like, I always make this trip. But the way his dad said it let him know, like, if I wanted you, you could have got shot. And that's the sad part about this. And this just shows us, the viewers, how it went down with that. And, like, on June 7th of 21, this scene may not be actually true, but this is a whole scene of Alex Murdaugh pulling the trigger, seeing his son Paul and Maggie by the dog kennel, and we see him wear like a coat, like a raincoat or some type of jacket type, poncho type thing, and he hid the poncho or coat or jacket type thing in the woods where apparently the police didn't find it, or maybe they did, I can't remember. But throughout the last minute of the episode is every time Alex Murdaugh looks in the mirror, he sees the blood of his wife and son. And again, they showed this scene for the dramatic and entertaining purpose. So I'm not exactly going to say this is true, this is exactly how it went down in real life. But the fact that they made a scene revealing how it would have looked when he committed the murder, it gives you an idea of, like, just based on the evidence that he did, set up everybody. And that's how this episode ended, is pretty much Alex Murdaugh in real life and just on this show. His whole empire dropped, and again, I think the one thing about this episode is the two things that are most important is Buster loved his dad, he loved his mom, he loved his brother, he loved his whole family, and to see it get all torn apart by one person, Alex Murdaugh, and just feeling guilty that, his dad's spending prison the rest of life, and that has to be the dark cloud over him and his wife, Buster's wife, and his family. They showed, like, they gave us updates, like, about where each of these family members are at or doing in their life in some sort of way. But it's a dark cloud, basically, that the Buster Murdaugh has to have hover over him and his family for the rest of their lives. And, Alex Murdaugh is living in prison, staying in prison for life, and he has to live with that for the rest of his life. So, but this episode was just watching a man ego get destroyed. This is an episode where the light shined bright on the truth. And I also think too it has to do with the time, the era. I think if this court case, if this trial happened within the same time with Paul and the boat accident, I think they would have got away with it. But I also believe, too, that because since time has changed, the people have changed, it's a new generation type. And yes, there was older generations in the jury, of course. But since time has changed and laws have changed and perspective of things that maybe a lot of people would have got away with back then. This was in the year where, even just being in like 2023, in the year 2023, I think time has changed and people have changed. And so a crime like this, whether you call it the woke era or whatever era, this is just a prime example of, to me personally, this show is showing in an artistic, entertainment, dramatic way that because of how long it took it to put him on trial, and by the time they put him on trial, you know, people have already made up their minds. And a guy like Alex Murdaugh was definitely not getting away with it because time has changed. Now, that doesn't make it right. I wish, you know, they would have handled this situation a lot sooner with the Paul Murdaugh's situation. And just before that, because innocent people lost their lives, innocent families has lost a son, a daughter, a loved one, a niece, a nephew, a cousin, a brother, a sister. And I wish back then in like the earlier 2000s where a lot of these incidents took place, again, I wish it got done, but unfortunately things like this, it just takes time, and it takes a certain decade to really show the truth, you know. And if you think about it, you know, Alex Murdaugh was probably at an age where he's probably close, at least in his 50s. And 50's young. I'm not saying 50's old. But, you know, time has passed. People had to find a way to move on and find peace with it mentally, emotionally. And unfortunately, that's just not fair. But this show is just a prime example, though, that I like to point out, that this Alex Murdaugh was not a professional, you know, murderer or criminal. He wasn't. He was just a guy who was egotistic. He comes from a family that has a big ego, and they thought they couldn't be touched. And it took a long time, but justice was served the way this show ended. And again, just to review this as a show, as a series, this was a really good series. It was very dramatic. It was very entertaining. You know, the cast members who portrayed these people from this event did an amazing job, did an amazing performance. You know, we seen, you know, recreate, but create something of the idea of like how this family was in real life. And they did their best, acting skills, I should say. And, you know, honestly, this definitely should win some Oscars for sure. And just a great series, and I loved it. Had a lot of twists and turns, shocking, revealing moments, and it definitely kept you on the edge of your seat. It made you want to see the next episode. This show can really get you to really tune in and focus on the show. And everybody, like, this is not like an action-packed show, so to me, you know what? The one thing I liked was the dialogue, the acting, the performance. Just the way they brought the emotions, the way they felt. They knew when to make it a dark time. It felt like a dark time. They knew when to make it look like these certain characters were innocent. And then they're really good at switching it up and say, here's their true colors. And I think they did an amazing job putting this series together. And, you know, I hope that this educates people. I hope this shines light for the family who's been through some stuff because of the Murdaugh family, and I hope people understand like stuff like this exists. He's not the only guy who does that in this world. So, but that's what I like about this series. It's an eye opener. It makes you think. This is art imitating life. So it was really good. But if I had to give this episode a 1 out of 10, I'm definitely giving it a 7. And if I had to give this whole series a 1 out of 10, I'm gonna give it a 7 as well. Really good, solid. I can't give it anything higher because we don't know everything was true or false. What was facts? What was fiction about it? But some of the things that are obviously fiction is probably the only thing that's fiction about it. But there's probably a lot of truthful events that actually did happen that this show did make scenes for. And everybody performed the way they needed to. So, yeah, definitely good. I think it's worth a watch. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. And that's my review, y'all. So, thank you guys so much. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Great Talking Entertainment official channel. Subscribe. Hit that notification button so you guys be updated with all my latest content. Thank you guys, and peace out.